sentimental some of these new devotees were. They're ready to give up their life if Prabhupada didn't personally initiate them. I was trying to make it to the coat rack and get my coat and get out before anyone could see me crying. I hadn't started crying, but I could tell it was coming. A couple of people patted me on the back and said, "It's all right, he can write you a letter and tell you your name." All I could think was, yeah, the way he was talking tonight at night never happened. I could barely stand up. I went outside and started walking across the parking lot toward Golden Gate Park. I was kind of heading towards the Golden Gate Bridge. I thought, I'll just jump off. No understanding of the philosophy. I hadn't been there long enough to understand that if you commit suicide, you have to become a ghost. I just figured my life was useless. I got about halfway across the parking lot when the idea struck me. What if he decided to take one more and I was out here somewhere? The thought filled me with so much hope that I turned around and ran back to the temple. And just as I walked in front of the temple, Janaki ran down and said, "He'll take one more." And she grabbed somebody else and ran up the stairs. I felt my knees start to collapse and tears came jutting out of my eyes. Harsharani was standing there, and she grabbed me by the arm and said, "Come with me." Later, Harsharani and Jivananda, this person, they got married, by the way. She raced up the stairs, pulling me to the top, and burst into Swamiji's room without even knocking. Swamiji looked up with amazement. She said, "Swamiji, you have to initiate this boy." I was just bawling, and Swamiji began to laugh. He said, "It's all right, don't cry. Everything will be all right." He chanted on my beads and gave me the name Jivananda. He went on to become the Sankirtan leader in San Francisco. The next morning, Prabhupada had to leave his affectionate followers. Several cars filled with devotees accompanied him to the San Francisco airport. Nandarani, you remember Nandarani and Dayananda? They joined a few months earlier. Some were sincere and some were crying because it was appropriate to cry when the spiritual master leaves. Actually, none of us really knew much about what the spiritual master was. Janaki mischievously stole the ticket, see a ticket in her hand, and passport from Prabhupada's hand. "Now you can't go," she said. "That's all right," he smiled. "I already have my boarding ticket. I am Indian. They will let me into my own country." Janaki was such a special devotee. She was Prabhupada's first female initiated disciple, and her younger sister is Jamuna. Prabhupada turned to his adoring followers gathered close around him at the boarding gate. "Actually, I have only one desire, and whoever does this will please me very much. Now I have a temple in New York, in Montreal, and a temple in San Francisco. So in New York, Brahmananda was the temple president, and Montreal, a devotee, initiated devotee named Janardhan. He went to Montreal and opened a temple. And here in San Francisco, there was Jayananda, Haridas, Ukunda. A lot of the original disciples were there running it. But I do not have any temple in Los Angeles. He told them to remain in Krishna consciousness and to please preach. So this was Prabhupada's his cue that now I have 3 temples, and now I want a temple in Los Angeles also. So eventually Dayananda and Nandarani they immediately went to Los Angeles and started a temple there. They watched as he turned and walked through the gate, his cane in one hand, boarding pass in the other. So you have behind Prabhupada there Mukunda, Shamsundar, and Janaki. In New York, there was hardly time for sadness. Prabhupada telegraphed Sri Krishna Pandit, that was when Prabhupada was living in Delhi to do his printing work. He stayed at Chippiwada at a Radha Krishna temple. And Sri Krishna Pandit, he was in charge of that temple, who had given Prabhupada the whole upper floor of the temple to reside. So now Prabhupada sent a telegraph. In those days, we didn't have telegraph on our phones. We had real telegrams that we had to send. So Prabhupada telegraphed Sri Krishna Pandit that his arrival in Delhi would be on July 24th at 7:30 a.m. And that Sri Krishna Pandit should prepare Prabhupada's quarters at the Chippiwada temple. In the telegram, Prabhupada mentioned his intention to consult a physician in Delhi and then go to Vrindavan. He was anxious to return to Vrindavan. So not only for spiritual purposes, Prabhupada wanted to return to Vrindavan in case he would leave his body, but for the son and for the fact that there were good Ayurvedic physicians there as well. So he would see a doctor in Delhi, and then as soon as he could, he would go to Vrindavan. So Prabhupada had written earlier to Krishna Pandit. I'm just going to read this letter because you can see that even in Prabhupada's illness, when he was weak and he had to recover, he had to concentrate on his own health, he had to deal with so many problems even then in the society. My dear Sri Krishna Pandit, kindly accept my greetings. I am very much thankful to you for your letter dated June 15, 1967. This was written on the 27th. Your prayers to Lord Krishna are heard by the Lord, and by His grace I'm getting improved in health day by day. Your suggestion to return to India is welcome. As soon as I get a little strength, I must return to India. I also thank your son-in-law, Yog Raj Sharma, for his suggestion. As you have not received the gramophone record as yet, I guess it has been taken away by somebody. So in those days, the post in India was horrendous. You never knew if you were going to get a letter, money, anything that you sent, unless it was sent by registered, and it was registered with acknowledgement due. There was a little card, you had to sign it to prove that you actually received the registered letter. They've stopped all that now. Now they have speed post. Therefore, I have advised my students to send another one by registered post. With that record was a check for 50 rupees 50, check number, in your favor. So you go to the bank of Baroda, Chandni Chowk, Delhi, and stop the payment by showing this letter. And upon hearing from you, I shall arrange for sending you cash from here. Your former letter was properly replied from here. I request you to see Messrs. S.S. Brijbasi Company at Fatehpuri. So even today, actually the main office of Brijbasi Prints is in Mathura here. They had a big printing press and so many buildings. Brijbasi, the printers were very, very popular at that time. Beautiful G.L. Sharma and many other very famous artists doing devotional artwork. So Prabhupada would have those prints sent to America and put up in the temples. Krishna with a calf, and Krishna with Radharani, so many different beautiful devotional paintings that we would have in all of the temples. We sent them an order for pictures and $100, but they are silent. Kindly inquire what is the fate of the money and the order. My blessings for your wife and children. Hope you are well, and thanking you once again. So Srila Prabhupada, not only was he losing money trying to do things through the post, but he was trying to get his books printed. Distance printing. He had sent the manuscript. He had sent $2,000 to the Radha Press. Nothing happened. So he was very concerned. It just wasn't working out between India and America. So he had all of these loose ends that he had to tie up monetarily when he got back to India. Where was his money? Where were the books? Where were the paintings? Everything. Everything that he was sending, there was no response, just silence. The day before his departure, Prabhupada wrote to Sumati Morarji. In reply to his last letter, she had agreed to provide a free steamship passage to India for him, but not for his disciples. As I had arranged for your passage to America, she had written, I think it is my duty to see that you return back to India safely, more so due to your indifferent health. But she would not allow free passage for any disciples. So later, Sumati Morarji softened, and when two devotees, because the American devotees in particular were being targeted by the government because there wasn't a good relationship between America and India at the time. America was pro-Palestine, India was pro-Russia, and there was a Cold War going on. So some of the Americans would suddenly get notices they had to leave the country, where to go, no money. So at one point, Sumati Morarji did allow two devotees to go on their boat, and that was Narayana and Dina Dayadri. But because of whatever happened on that boat trip, Sumati Morarji said, never again. No more disciples can go for free on my boats. So she did soften up eventually. On July 20th, Prabhupada wrote, I'm feeling too much to return to Vrindavan. This is Prabhupada wrote to Sumati Morarji, to the lotus feet of Vrindavan Bihari, Lord Krishna. Therefore, I have decided to return to India immediately. I would have liked to return via sea, as you have so kindly offered me passage in your letter, but in my precarious state of health, that is not possible. So by the mercy of Krishna, and through one friend here, somehow or other, I have received air passage, and I am expecting to leave here for New Delhi on Saturday next, reaching the Palam Airport on the 24th instant at 7:30 a.m. From there, I shall proceed to Vrindavan after a few days' rest in Delhi. So, Sumati Morarji, Srila Prabhupada called her, he was the father of ISKCON, he's our father, our grandfather, and Prabhupada called her the mother of ISKCON, because she assisted Prabhupada so much before he went to America. She printed one of his volumes, paid for the whole printing of one of his volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. She gave him residence in Bombay. She arranged for all of his legal papers to be done, and she gave him free passage to America. Very helpful. So, and then the correspondence between Srila Prabhupada and Sumati Morarji went on for those 2 years. She was always encouraging Prabhupada, don't come back until you have some success. So with that encouragement, Prabhupada was staying, extending his visa as long as possible. And here again, he's speaking in a very intimate way to Srimati Morarji through his letter, how he just wants to come back to Vrindavan. Continuation of his letter to her. I can understand that at present you cannot allow free passage to my disciples. But if you don't do so, at least in the near future, then my mission will be half finished or failure. I am just enclosing one letter of appreciation for one of my principal students, Bruce Sharp, that's Brahmananda, from Professor Davis Heron, and another from Professor Roberts of New York University. So Brahmananda, he was a graduate of NYU, New York University, and he did his thesis on Bhagavad Gita, one of his papers. And afterwards, he accepted a lot of responsibility for Srila Prabhupada up until his last breath. He became the first temple president. This is a picture Brahmananda and Gardamuni, they found after 22nd Avenue, although they messed up terribly trying to get that beautiful big brownstone house, losing $1,000, etc. Prabhupada had to step in and threaten legally. Prabhupada saved it. But they did get a new temple just down the street at 61 2nd Avenue. So this is Brahmananda when he still was carrying on his temple there at 61 2nd Avenue. I think these letters will convince you how much my movement of Krishna consciousness is taking ground in the Western world. The holy name of Hare Krishna is now being chanted not only in this country, but also in England, Holland, and Mexico that I know of. Because Prabhupada's followers, they would come to the New York temple, they would come to the San Francisco temple, and then they would go back to their countries. And they would start the chanting Hare Krishna also. It may even be more widespread. I have sent you one gramophone record, which I hope you may have received by this time. You will enjoy to learn how Krishna's holy name is being appreciated by the Western world. Achyutananda, well, he was also one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada, just a young boy when he joined, very attached to Srila Prabhupada. When Achyutananda heard that Prabhupada was going back to India, he immediately wanted to go with Srila Prabhupada, and he did, eventually. He went 1 month later and stayed in India for many, many years after that. He learned Bengali, he learned Hindi, he learned all of the, he lived with the Gaudiya Math, but Prabhupada at that time instructed him to. He learned all of the different beautiful mridangas and bhajans and everything from the devotees at Gaudiya Math. So now Achyutananda told Prabhupada he wanted to go to India to study intensively, gather experiences, and become attached to Krishna. He had heard Prabhupada say that one could become more Krishna conscious in 2 days in Vrindavan than in 10 years in America. So eventually Achyutananda, he came back to America and he wrote a wonderful book called Blazing Sadhus about his experiences with Srila Prabhupada. And you'll find some really amazing quotations there that you won't find anywhere else that Prabhupada shared with him. And this is one of those. 2 days in Vrindavan, you can make more advancement than 10 years in America. Do you think I'll be able to go? Achyutananda asked. Rest assured, Prabhupada told him, we will meet again in Brenda. So this is Prabhupada's original room at the Radha Damodar temple. This is his sitting room. The doors are open. There's a veranda, and you can see there, that's the door to Prabhupada's kitchen. So when Prabhupada did come back to Vrindavan, one of the most historical cities in America, where it was originally the capital of America after the Revolution. And there are many, many colleges there. Harvard, MIT, Boston University. And wherever there are colleges, naturally means young men and women. And young men and women are the ones who would be joining to understand the philosophy. So the next place the devotees wanted to open a temple would be Boston. And eventually that happened. The ISKCON Press started there. Many, many devotees joined there in Boston. We'll come to that in the later volumes. They had also asked Rupanuga to do the same in Buffalo. The same in Buffalo. There was a big university there. And when Rupanuga finally went there with his Kalindi and his little Sandra, so many things there. A yoga class in the university, and he was just churning out devotees from that yoga class, all getting initiated. So, Prahladananda, Jagadish, Purijan, Bhagavan, Krishna Bhamini, Lakshmi Moni, so many devotees were made, Yojapati, Bibi Govinda Maharaj, so many devotees were made from that Buffalo temple, the Boston temple also. And Rupanuga, Prabhupada, this is Rupanuga here, holding Prabhupada's cooker, to find out what he wanted. He became very pleased. Subal was going to open Santa Fe near Mexico, Arizona or New Mexico, somewhere down in the south of America. And it was another big center where a lot of hippies congregated. So that was also a very nice temple that Prabhupada visited that Subal opened, he said. And Dayananda was going to Los Angeles. But Swamiji had already assured them that whatever Krishna consciousness he had given them would be enough, even if he never returned. Now, of course, Prabhupada did return, but Prabhupada, in his stage, before he went to America, he so carefully prepared his Srimad Bhagavatam volumes that the entire life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya were there in the introduction, and he put the whole Krishna conscious philosophy within those first 3 volumes that the could carry on the movement with. Just 30 minutes before he had to leave the airport for the airport, Prabhupada sat in his room chanting on the beads of the girl who had asked to be initiated. Then, as he had done many times before, he left his apartment, went downstairs, crossed the courtyard, and entered the storefront. Sitting on the old carpet, he spoke quietly and personally. I may be going, but Guru Maharaj, and even though the material body may not